Hey guys, this is Mark. This is Mechanic Mondays. This is something that we do every Monday here at FLX, and we do have a playlist on YouTube. So if you want to check prior episodes, feel free to do so. Today we're kind of gonna do it just a bit different. Instead of going through our bikes, we're gonna do more of a Q&A, specifically questions that I get asked pretty frequently about myself and how I got into riding. So let's kick it off. So one of the most popular questions I get is how I got into mountain biking. I want to say it's maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was really into video games actually. And then just one day, a buddy of mine, like, hey Mark, we should go mountain biking. I was like, that's cool. All right, let's give it a try. And I didn't realize how out of shape I was. I could barely do a mile. I could barely do anything, honestly, on a bike. And realizing how unfit I was, that really kind of changed my overall outlook on the world. I kind of had like an epitome, I guess. And then from there, I got really into mountain biking. I chose mountain biking in general because I really like roller coasters, I like amusement parks, and I like cycling in general. So I just thought to myself, maybe mountain biking will definitely be the way to go. I got one of my first mountain bikes from Walmart, actually. It was a Huffy, or one of those really basic ones that most people will get as your starter bike. Immediately I knew that I needed something a little better. From there, my second bike was a Trek. I believe it was a Marlin 5. It was a hardtail. It did pretty well from there. And as I progressed as a rider, as I started getting much more experience, I started customizing the bike as well. And then eventually I kind of hit a handicap or kind of a limit to what the bike can and can't do. And then from there I sold that. One of my first full suspension bikes was a 2017 Marin Mount Vision. This was more of an all mountain trail bike. And this bike definitely hit the nail. I was getting really good, very confidence inspiring. I mean, it's a full sus bike versus a hardtail, so I was definitely hitting more chunky stuff, lots of roots, big jumps. I was getting to understand those as well. And then I sold that. I think I only owned the Marin maybe 5 or 6 months. I didn't own it for that long, surprisingly. And then I moved on over to a Transition Patrol. So it was a 2019 Transition Patrol. That one's a fully custom bike as well. And that one is more of an enduro bike. So it's a really long, really slack bike, and it has a ton of travel. So I believe it's 170 up front and 160 in the rear. And I love the hell out of it. Indoor riding in general, I definitely favor downhills over uphills, but I do get into the cardio sense of things too. And I love going uphill. I love pedaling in a general sense, but yeah, those downhills, enduro bikes are definitely the way to go in my honest opinion. I mean, downhill bikes are really nice. They definitely eat up chunk much more, but when it comes to uphills, not really as convenient, I guess, with the gears anyways. All right, so the second most common question I get is my favorite place to ride. So unfortunately, in my career, I haven't really branched out of SoCal. I think the furthest I've ever gotten was Big Bear, the San Bernardino Mountains. But one of my favorite places to ride has to be in Alpine, San Diego. The dirt there is fantastic. The amount of shade that you get from all the trees and stuff. Pine Valley is also really good, and Big Laguna. I typically ride there a lot. I just love the technicality of the trails. The uphill is fantastic, the downhill even better. But yeah, the views are great too. It overlooks lakes. The smell of pine cones from Pine Valley is fantastic. So I would say Alpine and Pine Valley would be probably my favorite place to ride, at least at the moment, until I start really branching out to places like Whistler. That's definitely one of my dream places to go. The bike park there in Canada is definitely balls to the wall on that one. So the third question is, how many bikes have I had? I think I answered that in the first question, but it was 4. I mean 5 if you count my road bike, but I barely ever do road. It was that Huffy Walmart bike. The second one was that Trek Marlin 5, and then I moved over to that full suspension Marin Mountain Vision, and then my current one, which is a 2019 Transition Patrol. I do have that. I think you guys probably seen it in the past on Mechanic Mondays, but if anything, I am part of the Facebook groups of FLX, and if you want to check my Facebook profile, I do have that bike all over my page. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. So the fourth question is advice that I wish I knew when I first started mountain biking. It's a bit hard to kind of think about stuff like that. Honestly, it really comes down to like how dedicated you are to the sport. I didn't realize how much I would love mountain biking, and I wish that I just spent the money straight away on a good bike, like the current one I'm riding right now. Another thing is really getting to know your community as well, and really getting to make friends. One thing that you really want to focus on is getting to know people that are of the same skill level as you. And once you progress as a rider, you want to start maybe making friends with those who are better than you. So you have people that you can follow, people to look up to, people to ask advice from, stuff like that. But in a general sense, as long as you understand trail courtesy, as long as you know when to move out of the way of faster riders or when riders are going up, because a lot of the trails, at least here in San Diego, are multi-use. It's kind of just have fun with it, honestly. As long as you're safe, always wear a helmet. That's really all I gotta say on that regard. So number 5 would be the protective equipment that I wear when I'm riding. I know it's really weird to say, especially since I'm the type of guy that likes doing downhill over uphill. I only wear a helmet. When it comes to the technical stuff and how the bigger jumps that I do, it's typically recommended to kind of wear more protective gear than that, more than just a helmet, preferably a full face if you're doing like downhill park stuff. But I don't really wear elbow pads. I don't really wear knee guards or knee pads or anything like that, mainly because the less my body is, or the more my body is restricted, the less comfortable I am with riding, like even to the point where I have a backpack. I hate having stuff on my body besides my clothes, honestly. It throws me off, it throws my balance off. I start crashing much more. I just don't like it. So as long as you wear a helmet, I think that's fine by me. But if you're not a very confident rider, I mean, I shouldn't really say that. If you just want to do it safely, it might be a better idea to wear elbow and knee pads at the very least. But for me, helmet only, I would say. Now the next question is, do you know any good cycling apps or mountain biking apps or trail apps in general? One of the most popular apps that cyclists or outdoorsy people use is called Strava. So it's S-T-R-A, V as in Victor, A. This app is fantastic. You have leaderboards. You can compare yourself to other people. You can also track segments, your heart rate, distance, elevation. There's a lot of things that you can do on this app, which is fantastic. Honestly, when it came to finding other people to ride with, it was through this app. So I highly recommend this app, especially if you want to explore any local segments or areas to ride. Another one is Trail Forks. That one's also really good as well. Unfortunately, I don't really know any other apps besides those two, but I would say at least get Strava, because that will definitely open a lot more windows. So another one, or the next question is, what is the gnarliest crash I've ever been in? Weirdly enough, it wasn't actually on a mountain bike. It was on my road bike. In a nutshell, I crashed into my buddy, and he was a lot bigger than me, so I kind of just bounced off him and I cracked my helmet on the asphalt. So my helmet was cracked. I got a mild concussion. I've never had anything close to a concussion before. So that was not the best experience. The first thing I remember after I was kind of regaining consciousness was my friends were kind of just asking me questions like, who was the president of the United States at that time, or what was the day and where we were at currently. The first question, who was the president, I actually had to think about that one. Trump was the president at that time, but I almost said Obama. So luckily, I turned out to be fine. I didn't really have to go to the hospital, but that was definitely a learning experience for me. I was going a bit too fast, and I took a turn for the worst and hit my buddy, hit the ground with my head, and I'm just glad that I wasn't seriously injured. So, and I could continue to ride from there. So it was pretty bad, I would say. So the next question is the longest ride I've ever been on. So I'm not entirely sure if people are thinking about like in terms of distance, elevation, or time. But when it comes to mountain biking, I feel like maybe elevation is the most important anyways, because a lot of the stuff we do is climbing and downhills. There's not really much flat stuff that mountain bikers typically do. One of the longest rides I've ever been on was actually at a bike park in Sky Park. So Sky Park is a bike park that has no lift. So all the downhills that you have to do, you kind of have to work for it. That day I did 4,600 feet of elevation and I believe 23 miles of riding, but that day definitely took a toll on me. I kind of just repeated the same trail. It's one of my favorite trails there. I forgot what it's called, but it's the main jump line. And I just like practicing jumps when I'm up there. We don't really get that much consistent jumps anyways down here in San Diego. So whenever I go up there, I always like to practice my jump game. But yeah, it was a pretty tough day. Towards the end of the day, I started getting tired, and you really don't want to ride when you're tired because you can start making mistakes, you know, you aren't really thinking clear enough and stuff like that. So I would say, yeah, that Sky Park day was definitely my longest ride. Okay, so the next question is, how do I become a better mountain biker? To be as straightforward as possible, always ride with people who are better than you. Mainly because you can follow their lines, get advice from them, but it's really just hands-on experience on what they do. Like riding behind a more experienced rider is probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. I get to see what they do at the speed they're taking it at. Like for example, when it comes to jumps, personally for me, I'm not really good at judging speed very well. I know how to pop it pretty good, but when it comes to speed, I'm really terrible at judging, and a lot of the time I overshoot things. So I like following riders that are much better than me when it comes to judging speed, when it comes to popping, just overall rhythm. So I kind of get a better idea of how much I should pop the lip versus how much speed I need to go into it. But yeah, really it's just riding with better riders. Definitely something I do recommend, and kind of just committing to things as well. I know that's a bit hard to say because doing something that's kind of out of your skill sets is not necessarily a good idea, because that could also lead to really bad crashes. But honestly, I've gotten really good at jumping mainly because I just committed to it. And you'll be surprised how much instinct kind of takes over. If you already know how to jump, all you have to do is just kind of just trust yourself, get loose with it too. You don't want to stiffen up, that's the worst thing that you can do. It's stuff like that, but it's really just committing. And it doesn't really have to do with jumping either. It could be technical stuff like rock gardens, roots, drops. It's really about commitment. You'd be surprised how much it's a mental state. Now my next question is, do I use flats or do I use clipless pedals? Because I'm more of a downhill kind of guy, I don't really care too much about the efficiency of clipless. So what that means is essentially your feet are clipped onto the pedals. It's apparently 30% more efficient because not only can you push down on the pedals, you can also push or pull up. So you're using a lot more muscle groups by doing that. But like I said, because I favor more downhill, I'm more of a free ride kind of guy. I like taking my feet off the pedals from time to time. Not to mention going with clipless pedals kind of freaks me out. I do ride clipless on my road bike because, you know, efficiency, road biking is mainly just for cardio, but it kind of scares me when for example, if I need to bail on my bike for whatever reason when I'm in the air, I can't just simply do it by just taking my feet off. I have to add another step into the mix by kind of clipping my feet off and then thinking about how to bail and where to do it. So stuff like that I have to think about, but you know, it really depends. If you're a more of a cross-country kind of guy, you definitely do it for the cardio, you definitely do it for the exercise. Going clipless would definitely be the way to go. The next question is, how do you choose lines when going through trails? A lot of that kind of just has to do with experience, to be quite honest, and a lot of it really depends on, you know, if you want to go the fastest way, or if you're looking to add some style to it, or if you want to make it even harder for yourself for some reason. Like going through rock gardens, you choose the hardest line just for the hell of it. But like I said, a lot of it really just has to do with experience. For example, when tackling berms, I like to start off high and then low. When it comes to rock gardens, the least path of resistance for me, because I just don't like rock gardens in general. And it's really just a matter of looking up when you're going through these sections. So what a lot of riders tend to do is look down at your front wheel or what's directly in front of you. What do you want to, for beginners, what you really want to start learning is to look up ahead. So you don't want to, you want to focus on what's directly in front of you, but you want to focus more on what's coming up, so you can kind of get yourself prepared for it. So that's definitely something I do recommend and will definitely help in the long run. The next question is, what is my favorite thing about mountain biking? And I'm a very outdoorsy person. I don't really like staying inside. I mean, back when I was a kid and I loved playing video games, but I don't really do that anymore. I love hiking. I'm kind of getting into rock climbing and snowboarding, but it's basically just being outdoors, honestly, is fantastic when it comes to mountain biking. And the speed you get and the thrill, I hate to say it, but you know, crashing sometimes could be very exhilarating. I remember a few crashes ago, or just crashes in general, always gets my adrenaline pumping, you know, making the assumption it wasn't serious or anything like that. But it's just the pure excitement from mountain biking. That's definitely what I live for. And I think that's all the questions. One thing that I definitely want to kind of advise or just give some advice out to people who are getting into mountain biking or just cycling in general, just have fun with it. Don't worry about how other people judge you, especially if you're going through like mountain bike parks and downhill stuff. Just worry about yourself. Everyone has to start somewhere. And as long as you're getting into the sport, as long as you're getting exercise, you're doing better than more than half of the world already. So just do your thing and have fun. And that's all that matters. And that's about it. So again, my name is Mark and this is Mechanic Mondays. We do this every Monday. And I am live on chats between 1 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you want to go on the website, if you have any questions or concerns regarding your bike, I'll be there. And just let me know what's going on. Thank you.